Hello! So I'm finally filming my February wrap-up. It's very late, much like my January one. But without further ado, let's get started. So for the month of February, I read a total of 9 books. Most of these are arcs, so yeah, let's get started. So the first one that I finished is The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. This one came out March 7th. I rated this one a 4.5 stars. So this is following Lore, who has this power that is closely related to death, essentially. But she hides this power because those who do possess it have been persecuted by the kingdom. But when she's discovered, she's taken by a group of warrior monks working for the sainted king. So during this time, there are a group of villagers who are dying overnight, and she's tasked to figure out what's going on. So this has a lot of court politics. I really like the magic building. It's very interesting. It's very atmospheric. But there were a few things, well, one main thing that really frustrated me with this book. The main character, Lore, she did not grow up close to the court, so she doesn't really know how court politics works, what court etiquette is. And they didn't teach her at all how to do it, even though she has to pose as a noble. She has to pose like a cousin of a duke. Even though her role is a character who grew up in the rural areas or something, she got 0 preparations for the whole thing. So it definitely felt like she was just thrown into the wolves, and again, was not given really any instructions, even after her debut to the society. You would think that with the high stakes here, chances of dying and stuff, and her working for the king, you would think that they would make sure that she has a foolproof background so that she can move around a lot freely. And also, she knows what to do in certain situations. She wasn't prepared for it at all, and she doesn't really know what to do with those situations. Despite that, I really liked still the atmosphere of the book. I think the world building was also really well done, and I was able to really picture the setting really well. I just wish that we got more from the characters and the plot as well, because setting-wise, world building wise, magic system wise, I think it was really well done. But the characters and the plot itself, not so much. I feel like there wasn't enough details, or it wasn't as well crafted as those other elements. But yeah, if you're looking for a really atmospheric read, and definitely there's a lot of tense moments and tense vibes throughout the book, so I really enjoy that part. It's just that, a few things here and there that I didn't really like. So I guess I would say this is more of 4.25 stars. So yeah. And then the next one actually received an e-arc and a physical arc of this one. 𝐻loe and the Kaishao Boys by May Kuyito. This is a debut contemporary rom-com starring a Chinese-Filipino girl who lives in Manila, and her father sets her up on a marathon of arranged dates in hopes of convincing her to stay close to home for college, because she's moving to the States for college, and they're also celebrating her 18th birthday. So in the Philippines, we don't celebrate Sweet 16. Our version of Sweet 16, or quinceañera, is our 18th birthday. So we have a debut for that. We call it a debut. And here 18 boys are chosen to be the 18 roses, and they're supposed to dance with the birthday girl. So I think some of those guys were being chosen, or some of those guys who are not family are being chosen to go on a date with her as well, to convince her to stay home. So this was really cute and a lot of fun. From the very beginning, when I met the character, I knew immediately that he was the one who was going to end up with the main character. I already had a feeling that he was the end game. But it still didn't detract me from my overall enjoyment with this book. The reason why I was really excited for this book was not just because the author is Filipino, but because this is following a main character who grew up and lives in the Philippines, and is set in the Philippines. She is Chinese Filipino, so that's a little bit different from Filipinos, because they also have different traditions, and it's also a different culture from Filipino culture. So still, I think this is the first book really that I read where the main character is Filipino, grew up in the Philippines, and lives in the Philippines. So I was really excited about that. One thing though was, it's really funny too, is that her best friend's name is Patricia, my name, and Patricia has an older brother who wears glasses, who always stays in his room and is on the computer. The first name starts with a J, much like me, so that's a little weird. Yeah, overall, I thought that this was really cute and an enjoyable read. Although it was pretty predictable, it didn't really bother me. And so if you're looking for a lighthearted romance, highly recommend this one. Oh, and this one came out March 7th as well. I rated this one 4.25. And then the next book is probably one of my most anticipated reads or releases for this year. I have 2 copies of this book and I rated it 5 stars. I think you can guess what it is. This came out March 7th as well. I think this was supposed to be released February 28th, so I told Rush to get this done. So, Adventures of Amina and Serafi. So I have... Okay, so the first copy that I had is this one from Waterstones. So you can see it has that sticker signed by the author. So I don't think it has anything very special about it except for the sprayed edges and it being signed. And I saw the Fairy Loot edition, so I was like, I will try to find one that's pretty affordable, and I found one. Only a couple dollars more than if I actually have the subscription. It's not too different. But yeah, you know, it has the same vibes. Very, very close to the feeling, but, you know, definitely different. It has special edges, digitally printed edges. It has these beautiful foil embossing on the hardback map, plus art on the end papers, which I really love. And of course, this is signed. And like I said, this is a 5 stars for me. So what I really like about this book is, well, part of the main premise is that we're following, again, the adventures of Amina and Serafi, but this is after she has pretty much retired from pirating. So she's a very well-renowned, well-respected pirate, but she has decided to live peacefully with her family, but she's offered one final job by this really rich person whose granddaughter got kidnapped. So she was tasked to find this granddaughter and bring her home. So she decides to have one last adventure with her crew. But of course, there's so much more to the story than just finding the granddaughter. And I absolutely love this one. 5 stars. This, again, is very interesting because we are following a main character who's already had her adventure. She's not trying to find her place as a pirate. She's already a well-renowned pirate. We're following her after all of her adventures. So it's a very interesting perspective to read from because she's also a mother, and the world building was really amazing. There are so many layers to this world that I would love to explore more. So it makes me wish for, you know, more books in this world. Not necessarily, you know, maybe following Amina, but I would love to follow her still. But if that's not possible, I would love to have more books set in this world because I can already tell, I think not even halfway through, and this is a pretty long book, that there is a lot of layers to this world, a lot of different places and cultures we can explore. I also really love that we follow each of the characters and we get to know them and their roles in the crew, but also their own motivations, you know, how their life has changed from their glory days, in a way you could say. So yeah, I really enjoy this book. A lot of twists and turns, so much layers to the plot, but also so much layers to the world that you can tell. There's so much more to explore that I really love this one. And again, I really love following Amina's adventure, seeing glimpses of her past adventures. And I love that you can tell that she has definitely grown. She has made her own mistakes in the past, and it's some things that haunt her to this day. So yeah, I really love this one. Of course, that's why I have 2 copies of it. Okay, and then next 3 books are mangas. And I don't usually reread books because I have so many books to read that although I would love to reread some, I don't really have the time. But for some reason, I didn't really plan to reread the manga, but I want to read some chapters, and became a whole reread. So I read the 3 volumes of Sesame Salt and Pudding. So this is an age gap romance between a middle-aged man and an early 20s young woman. So after a drunken night, the main character, Haruhi, wakes up to find herself married to this middle-aged man that she doesn't really know. Despite their age difference, though, they attempt to make their unlikely marriage work. And I love this. Again, I rarely reread anything, and this was a really fun, quick read. And yeah, I loved following really just their relationship grow, the way they fall in love with each other, and the way, you know, they started off more as roommates, but also in this contractual marriage. It's very cute and just lovely to read. So, Sesame Salt and Pudding. And then I read another arc. This one is The Future King by Robin Schneider. This is the 2nd book in the Merlin series, if I'm remembering that correctly. This one came out March 21st. I think my overall reading for this one is very similar to my experience with the first book. I rated this one at 3.75 stars. So it's still very much adventure filled. We're still following the same characters. And I really love Merlin. She was really, I wouldn't say reckless, but she definitely gets into a lot of trouble. And I think there's one thing that happened here in this book by the same character that is very similar to what they did in the first book that still felt out of character for them, even though, again, I've experienced kind of the same thing. I don't really remember exactly what it is, but it's very similar overall. And I'm talking about Arthur. He made some things here that felt out of character for him because I really like his character. I really like him. But he made this decision that could have easily have been, I don't know, solved if he had communicated it. And he wasn't ever portrayed as a bad communicator. If anything, he's really good at communicating, especially with his close friends. I guess he's still growing. I don't know. Yeah, overall, still really enjoyable. And I will definitely read the next books in the series, if there are more. The next book that I read is The Quiet and the Loud by Helena Fox. This one came out March 28th. I rated this one a 4.5 stars. This is a contemporary, heartbreaking, hopeful, and timely novel about holding too tight to family secrets, healing from trauma, and falling in love. So this is quite heavy emotionally. What I found throughout the book is that I really empathize with the main character. She's the kind of person that is very empathetic and is always thinking about others first and always catering to other people's wants and needs. It's something that I experienced a lot when I was younger, so I saw a lot of myself in her. So I just had so much empathy for her and so much just like understanding. Also a little bit of a protectiveness towards her. A lot of difficult topics for this one, but I still think it's a really good, quiet, reflective read. So 4.5 stars. And then the last one that I read is The Chaos and the Flame by Justina Ireland and Tessa Gratton. This is the first installment in a fantasy duology with ancient magic, warring factions, and a romance between the two people in the world with the most cause to hate one another. So this is very, very intriguing. Overall, I rated this one a 3.5 stars. And there is that knife to the throat scene that I enjoy a lot. So we're following a main character called Darling. She is vicious because she has grown up into this assassin type of character. A little bit unhinged, but I love that about her. Especially because Talon, who's pretty much her love interest, is the opposite of her. And he's this typical reserved soldier slash knight slash bodyguard main character. And then you have Caspian, who is unpredictable in his madness and is honestly really stressful to read at times when he's there because you don't know what he's going to do. But I still looked forward to it even though it was really stressful. There is a lot of world building going on, and especially with the different houses that reminded me a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire. You know how there's different families and different, houses essentially. And they have, different things that they're known for and stuff. So I really enjoyed that part. It was just, there was a lot of them that it was a little hard to keep track of, but I still really enjoyed that part. And also one aspect of this one that I noticed is that cosmetics and accessories for men is pretty much a part of dressing up as much as it is for women. So I really like how it's included in there, and it wasn't a special aspect of the story. It's really refreshing to read because I haven't really read a lot of books that, especially YA fantasy books. This one was also very predictable in the romance aspect of it. I knew how it was going to go, even how this thing was going to end. I do wish that they had gotten to know each other a little bit more before the end, because there's a lot of things that happen at the end that I'm definitely looking forward to reading the next book. But I feel like it'll help if they had gotten to know each other a little bit more than they did. Still very enjoyable. Very interesting magic system, especially with the hints that we were given in the last part of the first book. So again, still very interested in reading the second book. So those are all the books that I read for February. Again, not as much as January. I feel I read a lot more manhwas in January. But yeah, that is it for this wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you on my next one.